Welcome to Heather Rants. We don't really rant, but when people don't like what you have to say, they think it makes you sound like you're the one who's unhinged when they call it ranting. So there was a really big news article, a really big news event, I should say. It was a whole event. I believe it was Colorado with the shooting. And like many other PR responses that they have to court cases, people exposing them, which I think is a trigger word. I think we need to use the word educate. People exposing and educating the public about their practices around shunning and judicial committees and how they handle abuse. You know, the PR response from the actual PR department is pretty consistently disgruntled ex-members. And I think what the PR department is failing to realize is that eventually somebody is, and we need to start educating the public to do so, going to ask, why are they so disgruntled? Why are they so angry? People leave churches all the time and have nothing but good things to say about them. They were an excellent community. I needed them. They were a life-saving experience. But I outgrew them. The congregation vibe changed, so I found a different congregation. You know, they were wonderful, but it wasn't for me. Or they just simply stopped going. I lost interest. Like, how often do churches get attacked? And a lot of, like, one of these attacks was a racially driven attack on a church. The one where the dude went in to an African-American church Bible study group and, like, started shooting at a bunch of elderly people that were just there to worship. It was nothing to do with that church. They weren't attacking that church. It was racially driven. What would cause a person to go as far as to spend tens of thousands of dollars on attorney's fees, the time, the stress, the trauma, the re-traumatization of going through an abusive situation to expose, and a lot of their professed driving factor is just do things differently. That's all they want. I can't convince you to do it, so I'm going to try to push you to do it by taking money, because that's their driving factor. Why, if they would just apologize and change how they handle things, people would not be angry. They would be relieved. They wouldn't be having these people come out of the woodworks and start educating. We're not using exposing. Exposing is a trigger word. They're educating the public about how these things go. They're putting themselves out there to show support to somebody else who has gone through the trauma that they've gone through. And then with the shootings, like I said, people leave churches all the time and they don't have terrible things to say about them. What is there terrible to say about them? I didn't like it anymore. I didn't go. I quit going. I lost interest. There was no time in my day. Like, there's all kinds of reasons. People don't go shooting up churches. Unless they've been really hurt. Not that I'm justifying it, because I'm absolutely not justifying it. That is absolutely terrible. That's why I thought about making a video and I just couldn't. I'm like, as much as I don't like what they did and as much as I can understand the rage, you cannot do this to people. You have to accept that there's psychology and actual work and whole textbooks on what went behind convincing these people that it was okay to be that cruel to another human being. There's a reason I don't want to talk about Colorado. Because as much as I can understand the rage and the anger and what drove him to do that, I can't support it. As much as I want to understand it, I cannot support it. But when the public relations department comes out almost every single time trying to explain away like lawsuits and people talking about and like simply publishing excerpts from their documents, they will, here's the thing, they will sue somebody for copyright violations if you use too much of their documentation because they're trying to cover it up. They will sue you for exposing too much information and using their literature to further yourself. They're using copyright literature to push you to only use small excerpts because you can't expose an entire document without having commentary the entire way through, or else commentary or like copyright law can be pushed on you, and you can not only have that document, that cease and desist thing happen, you can be sued. You can owe them money. So you can't publish the whole thing. But when you don't publish the whole thing because they're going to sue you, they say you're putting things out of context. Like, this is a double-edged sword, and like somebody out there needs to point it out. Somebody out there needs to point out, why are these people so angry? Why am I out here talking about what happened to my judicial committee and the fact that they'll talk about mental health and their stuff, but when you're dealing with something and you have elders out there saying Jehovah's people are happy people, you obviously have something you're not admitting to because you're depressed. Like, I'm not... People saying that they were under the impression that, like, things were different, and they want people to know that it's not the whitewash version that you think it is. Like, if it's true, if you're going to put people through it, how can you be mad for telling somebody? Why are you saying these are disgruntled ex-members? What do they have to be angry about? I mean, we need to start asking, when people start talking, this is a disgruntled ex-member. Why? What do they have to be so angry about? I've walked out of relationships, friendships, romantic relationships, business relationships, all sorts of relationships. I don't go around telling people that, like, exposing all the dirty little secrets. I don't go out on YouTube telling people that, like, one employer owes me $1,000 in back pay. Like, it takes a lot. It takes a lot to push somebody to go out there and put an entire entity on blast. What do they have to be angry about? They're mad because you're going to paradise and they're not? Honey, if they left and they chose not to believe in this, they don't believe you're going to paradise. They don't care. They're not missing out on something that's not happening. In their minds, if you believe it or not, that's on you. Now, if you won't talk to them because you don't want to miss out on paradise, and these people twisted the scriptures around to rob them of their family to try and keep them in. It's like, if my husband wanted to go to church, I'm not going to tell him no. If I wanted to go back to the Jehovah's Witnesses, my husband would have supported me until he figured out what was actually going on. And now neither one of us could support that. Am I going to abandon a friend who tries to get into it? Heck no. That's not the way it's supposed to work. I'm going to hold on to that friend as long as they'll let me. And I'm allowed to be upset when they decide, or when they've been manipulated to believe that I am evil in spite of everything that they know about me. I am entitled to be upset. I am entitled to warn people that this is what's going to happen. If it's not true, then you'd have a right to be mad that they're saying untrue things about you. But if it is true, they're allowed to be disgruntled. They're going to be disgruntled for losing their entire family. Why are you not saying why they're disgruntled? Why are you just like trying to low-key passively dismiss this crap? They can be disgruntled. That can be a legitimate statement. But it's a really big cliche that's like, yeah, they're just mad. You don't need to pay attention to them. Nope. Doesn't matter if it's completely and 100% true. Disgruntled ex-member, disgruntled former employee. Even Amazon is doing like PR stunts about how great they are to work for, because people talk about long freaking hours and like little tolerance for, just having a human experience as like a parent or a single parent. Like, they are not the employer for you if you can't be like hardcore stuck to your schedule. And that's what people try to expose or educate you about. But in response, they're acting like they're being whole on attacked because they were promised something great and had a terrible experience because they just weren't forthright. Are either one of them wrong? Not really. Not really. The disgruntled ex-member that was promised great things and had a terrible experience because Amazon was not forthright. Amazon isn't wrong about needing somebody to be on a hardcore schedule. That is a huge entity with lots of big promises that they're trying to keep and super high standards. Where they messed up is not being honest about it. I can appreciate their standards. Where they messed up is where they were not honest about it. They're just trying to recruit because they're not worried about the quality of their staff and the health of their staff, and ultimately they're just worried about filling the spot. Ultimately, the Jehovah's Witnesses are worried about filling their seats. Is it wrong to tell people what the actual experience is? Is it wrong? No. Why? How are you just going to dismiss these people like they're terrible? Why not just be honest? Just be like, yeah, we do that. If you don't like it, don't come in. We have high standards. If you come in and you do bad things and somebody can prove it or they don't prove it and you just have enough people, like, if you come in and you do bad things, we're going to kick you out. And anybody associated with us is going to be told that they can't talk to you. We might even kick them out for talking to you, and they're going to lose everybody that doesn't comply. And when we kick you out, we're going to put you through a whole judicial committee, and it's going to be shitty, and it's going to be stressful, and it's going to be traumatic. And if we don't judge you to be not just repentant, because that's what they tell you. If you're repentant in the least bit, how many people have you seen on the street witnessing, like the videos? If you're repentant enough, they don't do that. What are you talking? People lie. They're just angry. They're just disgruntled ex-members. No, you don't know until you get into that judicial committee. If you're not repentant enough, and crying your eyeballs out is not enough. They specifically say it in the Elder's Handbook. You can have your whole face puffy and red because you aren't just putting on a show and crying. Like, you've been literally bawling your eyes out leading up to this whole meeting. making yourself physically sick, getting a sinus infection leading up to this meeting. You aren't repentant enough, because tears are not proof of repentance. You have to say the right words. You have to do the right things. You have to have the right emotions. And, you know, it's all up to the plumber, the window washer, the whoever to make that judgment call against you. Human beings, if they don't judge that you are repentant enough, you're disfellowshipped. They don't tell you that part. They tell you if they aren't found to be repentant. And then they have a whole freaking textbook with a whole section on how to judge repentant enough. And it's not descriptive. It really leaves a lot up to the elders and kind of hardens the elders against somebody being emotional and irrational because they're traumatized. People go through this terrible thing to the point where they are like, recovery can take years, and you have to go through that very shameful walking in, everybody seeing you, not talking to you, knowing that they think you're terrible, scoffing at you. Like, there's some that are happy to see you and they express that, and when I did try to go to the meetings, I appreciated that so much. But when they literally drop their shopping bag and run from you in the store, or they give you dirty looks, they don't know what you got disfellowship for. They don't have to know. They don't know if you had a mental breakdown and went on a drinking binge, and made a fool of yourself, or if you molested a child. Because they have that little information. They just know you're a terrible person, you did something, you weren't repentant, and you are unworthy of God's forgiveness. You need to work for it. That's all they know. When you might have... Yo, why are they disgruntled? There's a reason. And it took me like 18 minutes here to talk about it. If you made it this long, thank you. I'm not recording and editing this thing again. I feel like I've made my points. If it was a little bit too lengthy, I apologize, but thank you for sticking out this long. I'll see ya.